see you all. Nice to have you here on another morning. So this is, as you've probably seen in the announcements, this is a What Comes Next event, where we basically invite some of our graduates from recent years who were sitting where you guys are sitting today, and now a few years later on, they are at different organizations, different sectors. They're all graduates of politics and international relations, different degrees within PIR, and they're here to share their experiences with us, and also how their studies here connected to what they ended up doing afterwards. It's a good opportunity whenever we bring people from outside. I say, use this opportunity, use them to ask whatever questions you want. Sometimes it's easier to talk to students who've been, to graduates who've been in your place before, rather than to employers directly. So this is a great opportunity. Now, the session will look like this. Basically, our panelists will introduce themselves, and then we will get into some discussions. I have a number of questions to ask each of them, and once that's over, we hand it over to you. So you're more than welcome to ask any questions. Write them down as they're speaking about their career trajectories, etc. Just jot down whatever questions you may have. It may have been covered by them or not, it doesn't matter, so just feel free to ask any questions you have. After this, after the Q&A session, then we have a half an hour slot where we are talking about placements which are taking place, a number of placements that myself and two other colleagues within the department are running, and other opportunities through which you can earn your 35 hours and beyond in terms of work experience here. Now, a couple of housekeeping points. The session is being recorded, and we'll share this recording with you at some point in the future. And yeah, I've already talked about the Q&A that we're going to have. So, without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our presenters in any order, maybe starting from here, next to me, to introduce yourself. Oh, you've got Eve, right? And then we take it from there.
So hi everyone, my name is Kinsey and I graduated in 2020 during the peak of COVID, so it was a bit of a blur. And I now work for an architectural company called Foster Partners in a HR function called Global Mobility. So what I do is I help individuals go on international assignment, so they'll be seconded to another country based in the Middle East, America, China. And I will help with work permits, relocation, moving, and as well as doing UK immigration. And so that's just a little bit about what I do at Foster Partners.
Hello everyone, my name is Antonia. I have graduated from the University of Westminster in 2021, with Juliana here. 2021. Whatever, some time ago.
What degree? We just mentioned.
We did politics and international relations here. It was just during the pandemic as well, so definitely quite blurry. So anyway, I did that, and now I work in the NHS as a project support officer at Guy's St Thomas Hospital, which is one of the best trusts in the UK, which is really great. And what I do there is obviously help with the pathology service with implementing new projects, like for example, now there's a really cool thing that we're doing is where they get drones from one hospital to the other to deliver the blood samples. So that's really cool. Great, so I'll pass on to Juliana.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Juliana. Thank you for inviting me today to speak. I'm so happy to be back and seeing all your faces, just reminiscing about my times at uni. Okay, so I'm an executive assistant for the Ambassador of Brazil here at the Embassy of Brazil in London. My work revolves centrally around the permanent representation of Brazil to international organisations in London specifically. I know it's a mouthful and I can go into more detail afterwards, but essentially I answer directly to the Ambassador of Brazil and the diplomats that work under him. There are about 4 diplomats that work directly under him. And my job revolves around research, translating documents, taking care of his diary, which is crazy busy, attending events, writing nova verbales, which are the lines of communications between embassies, filings. There's so much, and yeah, I love the job. It's great. I've just finished my maternity leave, so I'm going back into work now. So bear with me if I forget the name of something. It just feels like my head is all over the place.
Don't worry, I've been there.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruth Adu, and whilst at Westminster I studied International Relations. I graduated in 2019, and thereafter I was already in employment, but in terms of my career path, I currently work at the Pensions Regulator as a technical business analyst, and my day-to-day role consists of supporting the business and the sort of IT technical side in terms of implementing systems that controls the way pensions are regulated, that involves system admins and all that sort of stuff. I do enjoy my role, it's good. I work with a lot of senior stakeholders, I work with a lot of documenting business cases and a lot of meetings. Resolving conflicts as well, so that's always a tour of me and what I do my day-to-day, as well as working as a technical analyst at the Pension Regulator. I also co-chair the Minority Ethnicity Network in my workplace as well, and since taking over that space, the network has grown tremendously, and we have loads of initiatives happening. I've been able to support a mentoring initiative for underrepresented individuals, and I do a lot of work with media as well, so that's something I'm very, very passionate about and proud to do as well. And yeah, that's all about it. Thank you.
Wonderful. That's great. Thank you so much. And we have a fifth person who's sitting in Nairobi, and the weather looks really good in Nairobi. Hi, Alexandra. Do you want to introduce yourself to us?
Hi, hello everyone. I hope you can hear me. Yes, the weather here is indeed great. 50% of the day. The rest is just raining, but I'm happy to be lucky right now. It's pretty sunny. So my name is Alexandra. I am a graduate of Politics and International Relations faculty at the University of Westminster of 2023, so last year I graduated. And I work for IOM Somalia, but based in Nairobi. I started as an intern here thanks to the partnership that our uni has with IOM. Then after my internship, I was offered a consultancy also with program support unit, but focused on emergency kind of problems in Somalia, emergency pillar. And after my consultancy, I transferred position as the grant officer for the rapid support mechanism. It's a new mechanism we're establishing in Somalia. So we are trying to make the most rapid support towards securing emergencies through implementing partners. So as of now, that's the job that I am doing. And thank you. Happy to be here on the panel today.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alexandra. I didn't introduce myself because I kind of assume everyone knows me here. But since it was mentioned that I should introduce myself, perhaps. So I'm Sahar Taqdisi-Rad. I'm one of your lecturers. I'm a senior lecturer in political economy, and I'm also wearing another hat within the School of Social Sciences, which is the employability director, which probably explains why I'm here. All right, so I'm going to start with my questions, and probably since the mic is on that side, we can start with Kinsey. So the first one would be probably the most obvious question, which is on everyone's mind, that while you were at Westminster, what was it that helped you figure out and kind of carve out the path that you took afterwards to gain employment in the place that you are? And also, is there anything you would have done differently while you were at the university to impact your career trajectory?
So I took a module called Politics and Migration, and I was really interested in kind of the free flow movement of people. That's kind of what I do now. I look at why so many people come into, the country to seek migration. We have a high volume of people who come from different areas of the country, of overseas countries, that wish to, get into engineering or architecture or different forms of what Foster and Partners does. And I kind of wanted to see, as a person who, obviously my parents did migrate to the UK to find better opportunities of life, I wanted to see what the determining factor was. And I did find out that, one of the biggest reason is for a better quality of life, to provide education to offspring. to provide better, resources. So that's one of the reasons why I decided to look into migration, which was one of the biggest determining factors as to why I went into this field. What would I do differently? I would look at maybe world development, and why they need to migrate in the first place, and what are the factors as to why they had to flee or find better sort of living in other countries. So yeah, that's what I would do differently.
Thank you. All right. So the question is in two parts, right? So the first one is what helped me at Westminster. So I would definitely say that my teachers, we had such lovely teachers who genuinely believed in us, and I think that really made a difference to me specifically. And there was one specific thing that I carry with me throughout my life and has really, really helped me develop my life plan in some sorts. So we had an event, something like this, to be completely honest with you. And we had Dr. Sam Raphael, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. And he said something like, find something to be angry about and do something about it. And that really, really stuck with me, in the sense that everything I've been doing, to help causes that I really, really cared and that really, really made me angry. So at the moment, I'm the president of the Romanian League of Students Abroad, and I have also started an NGO back in Romania, where I'm from, that helps people from underprivileged communities get access to healthcare. So because these are things I care about. So basically integrating migrants, as you mentioned, and I really appreciate that, in the community here in the UK, making students feel seen and heard and having a safe space, and also providing access to healthcare. So that was definitely something that was important to me. At the same time, another thing that really, really helped is having, this, I'm sure you've heard it quite a bit, that seeing life through different lenses. I think we hear about that since the day we start until the day we graduate. And honestly, I think when I'm not entirely sure how old you are or which year you're in, but in my first year, I was like, what do they mean about that? But now I can really, really see that, and how I approach problems in my life with this sort of mindset, to try to see things from different lenses and try to be understanding of other cultural contexts, and context overall. And I think that really helped me as well in my career. So yeah, I think that's about that. Thank you.
Okay. I think when I picked the University of Westminster to study was a very intentional choice. I've always been kind of very intentional with what I wanted to do career-wise, and I know it's not the norm for the majority of people who are here and who will go to university. You kind of go in, you pick a subject that you like, and you kind of just hope and see where life will take you. And I've always known what I wanted to do. I've always known the path that I wanted to take, and the choice of studying international relations at Westminster was very deliberate, not only because of the module choices, which I studied before coming here, and, attending the like the welcome talks and the pre-university talks, where you come in and kind of visit the university and get to know the teachers before you actually make a choice. That all kind of set in stone that I wanted to come here and study here. And while I was here, like you said, the teachers really truly believe in us, and I really took advantage of my time with them, and I never left the classroom with a question, ever. No question is stupid. If you have a question, ask it, because as soon as you walk out the door, you'll regret not asking the question. So even if you need to stay behind, speak to your teachers, use them to your advantage, because that's what kind of solidified my experience and my career choice here at Westminster. And there was one teacher who we were talking about, Franz, whose module was on diplomacy. This was a third year module on diplomacy. And it was the first and only time I had a contact with the module of diplomacy, which was like what I really wanted to study. But it was an optional module. And I said to him, Franz, this needs to be a core module. Why aren't we talking about this? Like, people need to, if you're studying international relations, you need to start talking about diplomacy. So after university, he pulled me aside and said, can you help me with a project on coming up with a module that would be a core module for diplomacy? I was like, sure, of course. So yeah, it was great. And something I would do different while I was here at university. Obviously, everyone's conditions are different, but we were talking about this as well. I think I would have taken more advantage of the societies here at university if you can. I know a lot of people, I did as well, work part-time, full-time while they're studying. You've got no choice. You just got to do what you've got to do. But if you do have some time, attend the events, attend the extra classes, attend the trips, pick the modules that will keep you active and keep you at university the longest. Use this time wisely, and within those kind of extracurricular activities, you might find what makes you angry and find your career path for the rest of your life. Yeah.
Thank you. My story is a bit different in terms of what sort of informed my career path. Before coming to university, I wasn't sure of what I wanted to do, and I'm Christian by faith, and it was something that I prayed about. And very random, my cousin just came up to me and said, "You know what? You should study international relations." And I said, "I've never heard of international relations. What's that?" And I started doing my research, and I said, "Well, it's something interesting. I like helping people. I like getting involved. I'm a people's person. I'm more front end. I want to be involved with people. I really want to make an impact." And it really, spoke volume to me. And I did my research, and, I made sure I was intentional about wanting to come to a university that can, provide that to me, and Westminster did that. And coming into Westminster, I would say what's really helped shape my career and what I've taken outside of the classroom is, the deadlines, having to do your essay. I write a lot of business case, and I write a lot of documentation, and the skills I've built up in terms of being able to manage my time effectively has really helped me in my career path. As well as public speaking. I have a lot of workshops. I deal with a lot of senior stakeholders. How do I manage conflict? How do I make someone who has a one-side understanding get along with someone who also has a one-side understanding, being in the middle and being able to resolve that conflict? And I believe international relations, the skills I've kind of grown from here has actually helped me to be able to manage those various stakeholders. For me, I would say one thing I could have done better is networking. I didn't do a lot of that because I was working sort of full time. I was trying to, manage myself because I didn't really get financial support. So for me, I was just sort of coming to class, go to work, come into class, go to work. So I would say, when we're looking back, network, make friends. They don't bite, people don't bite. And you might be surprised that the person who you think you don't have anything in common might actually be someone you get along with so well. So, look online, if there's a platform that you can network with people, even outside of your class, do that. And one thing I actually started doing throughout the end of my course as well was I had a pass that allowed me to go to other universities to utilize their libraries as well. So I would go there and I would just speak to people, and I was like, why didn't I do that? Earlier on, I got to meet more people outside of what I studied, or probably studied the same thing as me. And we were, in the middle of the night in the library, entertaining each other as well. So we all need people to survive in this world. No man is an island. So network is something that's really, really going to help you outside of the classroom as well. So yeah, that's it for me.
Great. Thank you, Ruth. So those presentations and essay deadlines were good at the end, right? Let's listen in. Alexandra, come on in.
Yes, I hope you can hear me still. So for me, the choice of doing international relations, studying international relations, was made before going to uni, actually. But studying at the University of Westminster made me realize that it was not a mistake, and that's actually what I really enjoy doing. Probably the best, the highlight of that was that we had so much opportunities and things to try. So even the optional modules, they were very different and very specific to people's interests. So if you're interested to one thing, there's a great opportunity for you to go and study, to ask professors, to participate in many programs that the university was organizing. So I think this big amount of opportunities what actually helped me to fall in love with the sphere of work I'm involved in right now. And in terms of what I could have done different, I think The only thing that comes to my mind is just participate in more programs organized by the university. For example, I'm not sure how it is called right now, but there was like a summer programs that you're basically choosing either a summer school or something you want to participate in, maybe a short course, and university can support you in completing that over the summer, financially and like academically as well. So I actually found out about this on my third year of study, so it was already a bit too late to apply. But if I would figure this out a bit earlier, I think this will just add a great experience in my like CV and just in general on going deeper into my sphere of interest. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Alexandra. I mean, that's a good point. I'll come back to this maybe later on when we're having discussions, that sometimes at Westminster, I think we get overwhelmed by the amount of information you get about, oh, attend this event, attend that event, here is a resource, here is something else you can apply for. But some of them, like if you do manage to find your way through those emails and announcements, like one of the things that Alexandra was mentioning is this, for instance, Ignite Fund, which gives you, I mean, I wish that was the case when I was a student, like £1,500, pretty much to do anything, to build your career, to, I don't know, attend a conference, to visit a place. I mean, that's a lot of money and such a great opportunity. And if you hear those things and you're like, oh, this is an opportunity, what can I do with it? Come and talk to us, and we can share with you, okay, these are opportunities you can actually use this money for, and why not? And then you put it down, as Alexandra mentioned, like on your CV, that I attended this conference, I did this project, I did that project for my dissertation. So there's a lot of opportunities around that. I have like about 4 more questions. So I'm going to ask if you could, answer it maybe in about a minute each or a minute and a half. And we can come back to some of those during the Q&A as well. So the second question, obviously, when you start applying for jobs, there's a lot of worries that, okay, am I going to have the right CV? Am I going to have the right elements on my personal statements, etc.? Does the job market have things that I'm interested in? Do they like me or not, etc.? What were some of the challenges that you felt you would face when you started to kind of have this transition between being a student and then starting to apply for jobs? And were those challenges that you thought you were going to have, were they actually the ones which were a problem? Or were there other things that actually you hadn't thought about that, oh, I should have thought about this when making my applications, when applying for jobs?
Yeah, sure. So I was applying during COVID, so there were hundreds and thousands of redundancies. But I was headhunted on LinkedIn. So that's one of the biggest, I think, best platforms you can use to apply for jobs. I made my CV with the help of my father, and he gave me advice to keep it to a page and a half minimum, and to make it short and concise. That did actually work, because I was immediately headhunted by a global mobility company. So that's kind of where I started my journey. And I would say that the hardest thing about that was the fact that it was fully remote. So I was working remote for 2 years, and you're kind of in a bubble to yourself. So when I started this job about a year and 6 months ago now, it was kind of having to get out of that bubble you're in, having to interact with the other colleagues, to be in an office, have interactions. So I would say that, LinkedIn is a very important factor, but as well as word of mouth. Believe it or not, referrals do actually work. So our company, and I'm pretty sure other companies as well, do, if you know somebody who works for a department that you'd like to go into, if you can kindly just ask them for a referral, they definitely will, connect you with the correct person. And then you should be able to kind of like find maybe an internship or work experience or an apprenticeship or even a graduate job. So LinkedIn and a referral, I would say, are the biggest factors to kind of use.
Okay. Just remind me the question, just so I'm sure I'm touch everything on it.
What challenges did you feel in terms of employment opportunities?
Right.
And were they the actual challenges you faced later?
Thank you for reminding me. Okay, so the thing is, when I used to be in university, I don't know if you guys can relate, I had this, I guess all my life, but especially to university, I had this feeling that I'm not doing enough. Like am I supposed to be further in life? Am I supposed to be doing more? And then somebody told me that it's for us, people who study politics and IR, it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. So it's more like consistent effort over time. So for me, I was already working during university, so that really helped me in the sense that I already had work experience, and after graduating, I didn't really start from scratch. What I definitely would say is to manage your expectations in the sense that you're not going to become a manager overnight, and you're not going to become, like a director of something. Like, everyone starts from the bottom, and that's okay. That's definitely fine. You have to learn the works before you can actually manage people, and before you can actually, prove yourself, let's say, to yourself and both to the world. So I think that was definitely okay. I always had these big expectations, and that made me a little bit disappointed when I joined the workforce, specifically. But then I started to learn and realize that if I show up, if I work hard, I'm going to get to where I want to. And on the other side, and that's related to my official job. On the other side, because I know you guys since you're doing this degree, you probably want, your leaders, or you want, some leadership positions in your life. And that's what I'm doing with the League of Romanian Students Abroad. I'm saying that, so I got this role because people actually believed in me, and because we built a relationship of trust and respect. And I think that if people respect you, they will automatically be loyal to you, in a sense that if you show up for them and you help them, and they can see that you're a trustworthy person, they're going to follow, and to help you achieve your projects and help you achieve your goals for the organization. So definitely that's something to work on the leadership side of things. So were my fears, accurate during university? No. I was always too scared of the future, I guess, and I was feeling overwhelmed about it. And now looking back, I should have enjoyed just being 21 or 22 at the time without stressing so much. But yeah, definitely don't stress too much, but show up, always show up, and try to do your best whatever you're doing.
Okay. I think the worst part about thinking, going back to that place where I was, where you guys are, and thinking, how do I get a job at an embassy? Where do I start? Where do I even get that kind of work experience? Because they're asking for work experience. How do I get work experience if I can't find a job in the field? And it's like an endless circle, right? You're like, I need a job that gives me experience, but they require experience for the job. But do you know what I mean? Like, so where do I get experience? In a sense, there is a little bit of a fake it till you make it kind of something in the air. Where do you find experience? Everywhere, basically. Anything you can put on your CV is valid. Obviously, you're not going to make something up, but I'll give you an example. So I used to work at a college when I was working here when I was a student here at the university. I was an administrative assistant. And I noticed that the college didn't have a model United Nations club. They just didn't have one. And I asked the principal if I could come up with a model United Nations club, and that's what I did. And it was one of the most successful clubs in the college. We had over 50 students attending. I took them to various model United Nations competitions, LSE Kings, and the students loved it. And that's something I put on my CV, because it means you understand and know the workings of international organizations, and it's conversation. It's something for you to talk about in interviews. So if you can't find something that someone will give to you, make it for yourself. Try to find it yourself, or make it your own. I know it sounds very vague and like, where do I even begin? But that's why you're here. I'm guessing, listening to experiences from people who've been there and done that. And regarding challenges of finding work, I think all of us here were looking for jobs in the peak of pandemic. Obviously, it was a very scary time. We didn't know we were going to have jobs or not. It will come. The right job will come to you. Just have patience, show up, do your best. Always dress like you're the best dressed person in the room, because believe it or not, employers do look at that afterwards. I did have a look at my file when I started work, and they do, comment on how you're dressed for the interview. yeah, don't be scared. Do your best and continue showing up to classes. Sit at the front of the room. You know, be the person who stands out, and will call attraction to it. Yeah, I think that's it.
What can I say? You have to believe in yourself. If you don't, no one can believe in you. For me, mine's a little bit different because I already had a job. I started working from when I was in college. So I was sort of exposed to the job market. And when I got into university, I was still working. But I did seize an opportunity that Rob gave to me. I had a work experience, and it was with, I don't know if you remember, Women Resource Center. And I was working there as a sort of work experience as a digital officer. And that sort of helped me to actually realize what I liked and what I wanted to do. And in that space, I was I started working there as an experience. It was volunteering. And, I would help them with their website. I would help them around the office, things they were doing around there. And they actually liked me so much. They actually employed me. They contracted me for 6 months. So after I finished my work experience, I went on to work for them, contracting for 6 months, and it was paid work. And that really helped me in terms of I was dealing with systems. They were rebranding their system. They were doing a migration. So I started to learn the ropes in terms of systems and, migration and, revamping your website and what that meant. And I was working with a particular developer, and, she was like, "Are you into coding?" I was like, "I can't do coding. It's like learning something else." But I did, realize what I wanted to do. I wanted to be the bridge between, business and technical, because they never understand each other. And I was intentional about finding a role what does that mean for me? And, being intentional, I was able to find, business analysis was what, I was able to sort of do. And I started working in consulting, finance. I worked for Monzo Bank. And now I am where I am in terms of pensions and regulations. That being said, me taking that opportunity to do that work experience helped me to realize what I wanted to do. There were challenges in terms of you have to study. I had to take courses upon courses, and I'm still taking courses in as much as I'm experienced in my field. But you need to be intentional. So wherever you're placed, seek opportunities in that space and do your best. Don't just see it as, I just have to do it as part of my course. Be intentional about where you want to go and, the experience you gather from there. It might not be interesting, but I'm telling you, you will learn something. If it's communication skills, there'll be transferable skills from what you've currently done that would help you in terms of securing that job. I think a challenge for me was, having that theory knowledge of business analysis and then going into interviews and, not being able to really defend or talk about, what it means to be a business analyst. But I had to change my mindset. I had to talk about some of the transferable skills I've developed from my previous role. I worked as a healthcare consultant, stakeholder management, working in the systems, being able to use those things to now provide star answers in those interviews, because you need to be able to deliver your answers in a particular way if you want those roles. So in a nutshell, take every opportunity that comes your way, even if it's not making any sense. Apply transferable skills. There's things you do within your university that you can speak about in your interviews that would help you. Network as well. Some of the roles I've gotten, I've had to network, and you also have to believe in yourself. There was a time that, I was applying for a role and I spoke to my manager about it and I said, I want to go for this higher grade. And they were like, I don't think you're quite ready yet. And I could have been knocked down by that comment and not, pursue that role. And I said, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. And I applied for that role and I moved up a ladder. So like I said, it all starts with you and you willing to, take that challenge and trust in yourself. And yeah, just face things and just gain as much experience as possible. Don't think because, I haven't gotten a first job yet. There's a lot of things you're doing currently in university that would help you secure that first row. So yeah, believe in yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Alexandra, come in.
Yes. So just to highlight and not to repeat what was already said on the challenges I faced, probably the first challenge was to deal with rejections when you're in the stage of applying, because you apply, you reject, you're rejected. So that's kind of a struggle I was facing during the first I think few months of applying to different jobs, because after not receiving any success through this application period, I actually felt that maybe I am the problem. Maybe there's something wrong with me if every single application I'm applying to is me being rejected at the end. However, this is absolutely not true. As it was just mentioned, it's more of a marathon than a sprint. So you actually have to keep applying, and at the end reach the result that you will realize that you were waiting for it. That happened in my case as well. And just to make a note on the experience. So I graduated last year, and for my current role that I'm undertaking right now, to accept the offer, just in terms of formalities, I had to have at least 2 years of professional experience. And this was a bit of controversial thing, because it seems I just graduated a year ago. We are talking about 2 years of professional experience. Plus, I did an internship for 9 months, but in the UN system, all the internships counts as half of the experience. So my 9 months at the end became 4.5 months. And I was literally very in this very depressive mode, thinking that what if I cannot accept this just because I did not have enough experience? So I started to remember everything I did during the uni, all the part-time jobs I was undertaking, all the events I was going to, even at the end, even my experience of being a student ambassador count as the professional work experience, which actually helped me to gain that last few months that I was really seeking for. And at the end, yeah, everything worked well, but that was a very stressful moment of my life, because I thought, how can I lose this opportunity right now just because I did not have enough experience? So this comes in an advice for you: just take every opportunity there, even if you think that you might spend this time for example, there's a very short-term opportunity and you think that I would not accept it and just try to seek for something more relevant to my future career goal. Still accept what is being offered right now and keep searching for something else. At least you will not waste any time. At least this will add up to your CV, to your work experience. And at the end, trust me, you'll say thank you for this advice, because this was very, very crucial in my career specifically. So yeah, that's it from my end.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Alexandra. I think a few quick points from the discussions that you guys mentioned. Be visible. I think Juliana mentioned it's actually quite good, even for your lecturers and also in other sort of forums in life, to build that confidence and put yourself forward for a lot of things. Do take up opportunities. Alexandra was mentioning, you never know how it kind of comes to help you. When Alexandra was getting the full-time position, normally for the position she has now within the UN system, you have to have a postgraduate program. But she built up her profile in such a way that combination of the internship plus other experiences meant that she did have those 3 years. So that's quite important. Build those opportunities for yourself sometimes. They don't exist. But approach an organization, even if they haven't advertised an internship or a placement, approach them and say, hi, this is me. This is my CV. If you have something for me to do, I'm available. And a lot of the times, this is actually how things work. And someone might think that actually I have a project coming up I could do with 3 months of help from someone with this CV. So put yourself out there. 2 more questions, and I'm going to be very strict with time this time. When I say 1 minute, try and stick. So 2 things. How was your selection process, recruitment process? Was it an interview, application? So a quick one on that. And then what's been one thing on your CV that you thought made a big difference when you were making that application and getting that job?
So my interview process, so there were 2 interviews I had to do. So the first was with my actual manager and supporting team. And then the final person was with my manager and the head of HR, just to see, if my skills were, good, as I stated on the CV. And I think the best thing that stood out for me on my CV were my soft skills. I would really say build on your soft skills. So this would be like Microsoft Word, Excel, PowerPoint, because believe it or not, like Excel is my best friend. And 2 years ago, I couldn't stand Excel at all. So I would definitely say develop soft skills as well as hard skills. So training certificates or anything that you want to go into, I would definitely say find a body that can support that. Do the training and you can just put that on the CV, as well as having a really strong personal statement as well. Just because you kind of like need to brag about yourself. Like you need to tell them that I'm the best, you need to hire me for this job. And these are the reasons why. You kind of have to be like a New Yorker. You have to like take over the whole room and the space and be very braggy. Yeah.
Thank you. So for me, I believe the thing that stood out the most, I think it was, so we had just an interview. It was the first job I applied for. During that time, I was searching for jobs. The first interview I had and I got the job. And my manager at the time told me that she picked me because I was genuine. And I showed a lot of, like pure intentions, let's say, in my work. Because as I mentioned, so I'm doing what I'm doing, all my activities, because I want to actually help people. So when I had the interview, I talked about that and about my interests. And she could see that I was really, really passionate about things and about what I was doing. And she really liked that. And that's what she said. That's what really changed things for her. And to be completely honest with you, I am quite charismatic, and I encourage you to try to, hone this skill in a sense, because it can help you a lot. You have to be smiley and approachable, and you'll see that people are drawn to you in a sense that they want to hear what you have to say. So that's definitely something. And for my other jobs, I think what really, really made a difference was my volunteering experience. I've been doing volunteering since I was 12 or 13, like all my life. This was like a constant. And that as well counted as extra experience. And I looked like someone who knew what they were talking about, even though sometimes I wasn't. So yeah, definitely that. Do some volunteering, do the extra work, and try to be approachable and genuine with your intentions and your passions. And I feel like the right opportunities will come into place. That's it.
Cool. So how I got my job at the embassy. I was doing my master's degree at SOAS, and I saw that there was an opening, because I was checking every single day since my third year of university to see if there was an opening. And finally there was an opening like midway through my master's degree, and I applied and didn't think much of it. I thought, if I get selected for an interview or whatever, they'll send me an email, right? Which is what always normally happens. Towards the end of my degree, we took a trip to Geneva to lots of UN institutions. And in the last day of my trip, I was like, I haven't heard anything back. Let me check the portal, because you apply directly through the embassy's portal. And I saw my name. I'd been selected for the first round of interviews, and I had to be in London the next day at 9 a.m. if I wanted to take part in the interview. And I said, it's 11 o'clock in the evening. How do I get from Geneva to London? I can't do this. I went on Skyscanner and I said, if I can find a flight for less than £200, I will go. And I found a flight for £199. Next day, 6 a.m., I was at the airport flying back, went straight. Lucky for me, I was in a university trip and I had clothes that were, appropriate for that kind of interview. So I went straight to the embassy to do my interview. My first round was a translation test. So they gave me a text on the importation of coffee and sustainability within that field. And I basically had to translate that into a non-official script just so that the ambassador could understand. And that's something with working in embassies. You'll probably have to speak the native language of that embassy that you're working for. So in Portuguese, it's a non-official translation. So it's just so that the ambassador can understand what the text says. And I passed that round. On the same day, they called me in for an in-person interview just to see my experience within international institutions. And that's something that really helped, was taking part in lots of model United Nations and lots of model other organizations, whatever you can find. I was literally attending one like every month. It was crazy. But the more you go, the more you attend, the more experience you have, and you know the workings of international organizations. And then my third and final round, which was a day after of interviews and solidified the job, was questions about the actual organization itself and the 5 international organizations that my representation represents here in the UK. And they said after the interview that I was the only person who knew the name of all 5 organizations. So what I can say is, before you go to any job, doesn't matter if it's an embassy or a private institution, study the place you're going to before you go to the interview. Don't just show up and say, oh, I'm here for a job as a receptionist. Like, try to find the story behind the institution. Try to find who runs the institution, who's going to be your manager. Go on LinkedIn. That's what LinkedIn's here for. Just try to find more. The more information you have, if you go for an interview, the better. I think that's what I can say.
I completely agree with what you've just said. Yeah, even if you don't know the organization, you know, still talk as though you're within the organization. I always say, you know, as someone in this role, you know, it's quite daring for you to say, in this role, you've not even been selected. So definitely, you know, talk as though you're already in the role is also an advice. But for me, in terms of my current role, experience and certifications, I have various certifications with regards to my role that has helped me, you know, even support them in terms of delivering projects and all that sort of stuff. And in terms of how I got the role, I didn't even apply. I was headhunted. You know, a recruiter reached out to me months before. And then months later, well, you've been selected for an interview. I didn't even put my mind on it because I wasn't really looking. It was a 2-stage interview. So I went for the first stage, which was presentation. I was like, oh, my bread and butter. You know, presented, they asked, you know, it was technical and competency, did that with the hiring manager. And then there was a second stage interview, which was more, you know, drilling down into my CV and my experience. So some, you know, employers might go into detail and ask you questions pertaining to your CV. So whenever you're putting your CV out, make sure you are very entwined with your CV, know exactly what you're putting on your CV, so you don't, you know, go into a space and they ask you something and you're like, oh, or you're stuttering, or you seem, you know, unsure of what you have on your CV. It doesn't look good. So you need to know your CV really well. That went well. And be human, you know, have a good time. I always see an interview as a chat, a formal chat. So don't, I know it's nerve-wracking sometimes, but you want to be able to have fun in that process, because no one wants to work with someone who is not interesting or who is not fun or is overly too serious. So you want to be able to show them your soft skills. You're very personable in that space as well. So that really helps. So just be yourself when you go into an interview, and yeah, know what you're applying for and the organization as well. So every time I go for an interview, I always make sure I go through the organization. About Us is, you know, something I do go through the LinkedIn. And a personal secret of mine is, you know, even going down to, you know, if I know the recruiting manager, I'll go on their LinkedIn and try to see, is that something they have in common to myself? Have they worked in various sectors? Is there something that they've done in their previous role that relates to mine? And we can talk about that in that space as well. So people want to be able to relate to you when they have something in common. So that's helped me in terms of my role. Yeah.
So, and in my case, what probably CV-wise made me stand out is the amount of publications I already had under my name. I would say that's what the recruiters paid attention. I have few publications under the Democratic Educational Network that I was a part of during university, as well. I was doing few part-time research internships, which also ended up in the official articles being published under my name. So this list actually, I think, interested my recruiters because my job, essentially, the internship, was a lot about working with paperwork and like drafting something, reviewing papers, writing papers, writing summaries. And during the recruitment itself, I was lucky enough that even that it's my third position with the organization, I only had one interview at the very beginning because the rest of the positions was a direct recruitment. And during my first and only interview, the advice I would give, and I'll probably just repeat other alumni, is that you prepare for the interview, do a little research on on who is recruiting you, what is this organization about. For example, during the recruitment, I was asked about what do I know in terms of environmental situation in Somalia. And a day before that, I watched a documentary about the historical drought in Somalia. So I was that was very helpful for me because I could at least answer to their question, not just coming up with just random things from my head, but actually giving them the information that I thought they were searching for. So yeah, that's just the advice from my end.
Thanks, Alexandra. So I think a common thing is that you all took the interviews very seriously, and the organizations you were approaching, it wasn't just kind of turning up for the event. We have 2 minutes literally before we have to do Q&A. Any of you, and I'm not going to go by order this time round, I think one question everyone would ask is, where do I go to look for jobs? Particularly if you're a politics and international relations, international development student. Anyone has any thoughts on, websites, recruiting agencies that you found quite helpful and you would advise our friends here to kind of use?
I mean, like I said, I was very specific and intentional with what I wanted. So anyone can work at an embassy. You don't necessarily need to be a national of that country in order to work at an embassy. There's two kinds of people who work for embassies. There are people who are part of the mission and are sent from their countries to a specific place to take part in that mission. And there are locals, so people like me, who are people who live in that country already and will just work to help the people who are coming to kind of get used to life here, and like if they need help with local aspects of their job.
For me, I applied directly through the portal of the embassy, and I think that's where most people would have to apply if you're going to work for an international governmental organisation. It's directly through them, but I mean, LinkedIn, like you said, it's an open door, a massive open door. If you have your CV like up to date, if you're posting regularly, small things that you do on a day-to-day, like at university today I had a lecture about this and that, it's valid, like post about it, it's completely valid. Yeah.
I said Ruth, sorry.
I think for me, one thing that really helps me is having recruiters, the contact information. For instance, if you know there's a particular area you want to go into, go on LinkedIn, look for recruiters within that particular area, because the specialists, before it comes out on the normal job market, the recruiters would have first sight of the role. So make sure you make friends with recruiters, have them at your back pocket. Normal websites as well, and reach out to organisations as well. Within my organisation, they would usually have, yearly internships for individuals coming from, universities as well. So just network as well. So if there's individuals, reach out to people who've left university and are working as well. They might have, opportunities coming up within the organisation. So all in all, network socially, network in person, and just put yourself out there and be visible has really helped me.
Can we now move to the Q&A, if you guys are okay with that? And if other ideas come to your mind and you want to answer that and bring it up during the questions and answers, please feel free to do so. All right, let's just start. So many questions. Where do we begin? All right, Gloria.
I was just wondering if we were looking to do an internship within an embassy or a certain delegation, and they give you an interview, like how you would handle that interview? Because I know it's not for like a regular job, but do they expect you to know everything about it, or are they quite open with the fact that you're still learning and, you know, they know you're just a student trying to...
No, great question. Thank you. You learn on a daily basis. I'm learning today, like even now. No, they don't expect you to know everything, but they do expect you for the setting of embassies, they do expect you to know the workings of the embassy. They do expect you to know the organizations that you'll be working for and with. They don't expect you to know things like what kind of projects they're working on, what kind of, you know, what's on the table, basically. They don't expect you to know that because that's normally confidential. I've completely lost my train of thought. What I was saying, what I mean is they don't expect you to know everything, but you need to be prepared in that sort of sense. So for one of my for the job requirements that I had for this job is I needed to have a postgraduate education in something to along the lines of international relations and diplomacy, which is what I did. So I knew that before applying to this job that would be a requirement. So if you know that you want to work for an embassy and the job requirement says you need to have a postgraduate education, then that's something you're just going to have to go out and get if you really want that job. But apart from that, you learn on the job on a daily basis. You need to know the basics. And also, I think it's less about what you know on the interview and more of how you present yourself. Because like you were saying, if you kind of go to the interview almost like saying that you're already working there, sort of, if you have that vibe of like, I'm here and this is what I'm doing, and not, I would love to work for you. No, I'm here and this is what I'm going to do and this is how I'm going to help you get there. You know, have that mentality. I think it helps. Make people remember you. That's what I would always say. Leave the interview saying, yeah, they'll remember my name for sure.
My question was going to be, how many applications did you make before you got the job that you wanted, and how do you stay motivated when you're applying and you get rejections and things like that?
I don't think I'm the best person to answer this question because I was headhunted for both of my jobs. So,
I think you have to be strict with your mind in terms of you will definitely fail, but just know that there will be success at the end. Like I mentioned, I already had a role. You know, my current role, I was headhunted, but the ones previous to that, I had to interview. I had hundreds of rejections. And sometimes when you get those rejections, you need to sit down and think, oh, I'm getting rejection. There has to be something with my CV. If you're not getting callbacks, at least from recruiters, if you're not getting put forward for interviews, first stages, there is something definitely wrong with your CV. So you need to go back to the drawing board and sit down and, restructure your CV. At a point, I was just using one CV to apply for multiple roles, and I'll get that, unfortunately, and I'll just keep deleting. And I was just like, I can't, it really knocks your confidence. But what I did was, I had to sit down and say, well, nothing's coming through. I don't get calls. My CV isn't going forward. And bear in mind, there are things like, application tracking system that actually, it's the system that actually reviews your CV before it even gets to a human. So you need to be considerate of that as well. So you need to make sure whatever CV I put forward, I tailor it to that role. So I'm very intentional when I'm applying. I don't have one CV. I have multiple CVs for different roles. So don't have that mindset of I'm going to use one CV to apply. It might be related because they might be asking for, business analysis. They might be asking for technical. They might be asking for other things. So you need to tailor your CV to the particular role you're applying for. And that's what's really helped. And when I did that, and when I started to understand that, it really helped. So rejections will come. But when it's getting too much, you need to take a step back and analyze, am I doing the right thing? Get an expert to review your CV as well to help you. Because sometimes when you're doing something, you need to have someone with a fresh pair of eyes to review that CV for you as well. So that's what I did, and it's really worked for me as well. So, yeah.
Alexandra, do you want to say anything on this? Or if you're okay, we move on to possibly another question.
It was at the end, it happened that the job found me, not me finding a job, because it was an offer from the University of Westminster through this program we have with IOM. But before that, I cannot even count the amount of applications I was sending everywhere, not even specific to like international relations and politics kind of sphere, but like just everywhere, just trying to get more work experience from any source that I can after university. But yeah, I was just lucky enough that there was this opportunity and I was selected to be a part of it. But definitely I was facing rejections, many, and this should never stop you from applying and applying. So yeah.
Thanks, Alexandra.
Hi. So I just had a question about how do you go about networking with people? Because it sounds easier, like said than done. How do you go about networking with people and growing your connections on LinkedIn? And like, I don't know how you even start a conversation for like networking, basically. So yeah, that was my question.
Hi. So that's actually a really good question because networking is always cringe. It is. It really is. Sometimes going up to people and just starting up a conversation, even if the environment, I mean, even if it says networking, it's still really odd and feels a little bit unnatural. So I definitely agree with the sentiment. What I did find out, actually, I went to an event the other day, yesterday, and I had a chat with this really, really cool lady. And she was telling me, I like the way you network. It's just like, you don't talk to many people, but at least you have meaningful conversations from what I can see. And I guess that's important in the sense that it doesn't really matter if you get to talk with 10 or 20 people if all the conversations are superficial. Try to see who's in the room and can actually help you and can actually, give you some real advice, for example, and go to that person and try to stir up a conversation. Now, what I think it's a really good advice is in order to be interesting, you have to be interested. So ask questions, be curious. Curious people are the best to have conversations with. Like, for example, if I look at you now and I say, oh, I love your blush, where is it from? You like me more, right? So that's definitely something that you have to practice, being curious about the other person and being genuine. It's also a very important thing, like just feeling honest and actually care about their experience. So yeah, definitely do that. I think that's a good advice.
This question made me think of a friend she's the kind of friend who I can ask, I need a surgeon who works at St. Thomas for surgery tomorrow. Do you know someone? She's like, yeah, I know someone. I'm like, how do you know these people? It's crazy. She always speaks to everyone in the room, whether or not they're going to make sense at that time. She knows everyone because she introduces herself. Like I've been saying all the time, make yourself visible, make yourself known, introduce yourself, start the conversation, even if you're shy. You don't know who you're about to speak to. You don't know their story. And every person who you meet will be a valid connection for you to have in future. So don't be shy. Be the first one to say hello. Even if it's a conversation about your blush, the conversation could lead to something else. Yeah, that's what I can say about that.
And on that note of networking, I mean, you can start exercising that at lunchtime. So between 1 o'clock and 2 o'clock, these guys are going to be here. Approach them. These are the kind of people we start to need to network. And I can't agree more with how important this is. Sometimes you feel networking is to go to a room where you don't know anyone and you have to make conversations. But no, actually, a lot of the times it's also making connections with individuals that you know. And I myself sometimes feel like if I have students who've come up to me in a class and said, Sahar, I'm interested to do an internship. Do you know opportunities? And then I come across something and I'm like, oh, so-and-so told me this. By the way, here's an email if you want to apply for it. It makes all the difference. I mean, of course, there's always, application processes, etc. But knowing people, talking, putting yourself out there and being visible, you're not going to gain much by being always silent and kind of stand in the corner. I totally understand that it takes confidence, but it also takes effort to consciously say that, no, I'm going to show myself. I'm going to show that I'm kind of keen, looking for opportunities. Something else that they all mentioned, LinkedIn. Does everyone have a LinkedIn account here? If you don't, you need to have one. And I'm sure sort of during the course of this year, next year, you'll be developing that. If you don't know how to do it, again, you're going to get training on that, but come and speak to us because that's very important. When the guys talk about being recruited by sort of headhunters, etc., a lot of the times it is through LinkedIn. They look at what you do, who you are, and then they approach you. And also there you need to be smart. You might think that, oh, I'm a student. What do I have to upload on LinkedIn? Upload that, oh, I've just attended an interesting session. Take a picture, put it up there. Oh, I went to this training workshop. Here is a photo, I've done this. So then by the time you graduate, it almost feels like, oh, you've done quite a bit of stuff. I worked on my dissertation project and here it is. And I remember, I don't know who mentioned here, but so where Alexandra works she's referred to as International Organization for Migration. It's a UN agency. And the head of the human recruitment, the director of human recruitment, he was here last year and he's coming in November. I'll let you guys know. And he was talking, and he sits in the Geneva office. And what he said was that, and he's worked for 34 years within the UN system. He said, we get tons of CVs. What stands out more, particularly in also your personal statement, is that you tell a story and that the story sticks to that person because they're looking at 100 CVs. They all kind of more or less look the same, but it's the story that you tell about why I, as Sahar, I'm good for this job, or I like this job, or I want to get into this field. That's the bit which sticks. So I think that's very important as well. Questions? Any challenges? You know, do you guys feel any like challenges? What's the bit? Is it just that maybe also a question of, okay, I don't know what I want to go into? Is that a challenge? Because I think politics and IR is sometimes a bit of a, you know, you're not studying biology, which sometimes would make it easier, or physics. Sometimes I think in politics and IR, we have that challenge of, you know, what are the jobs that I can go into? Tell me what the challenges are.
I think a challenge would be that when you haven't done anything specific to politics and IR, but you've done other work experience, about how to showcase that you do have transferable skills.
Very good question. Yeah. So how do you guys, any of you, like, you want to come in on that? How do you turn a services sector thing you've done, you know, hospitality? How do you use those to kind of create transferable skills that you put on your CV?
So when I was in college, I started my role, I worked at Sainsbury's. And in the time working at Sainsbury's, it wasn't related to international relations and it's not related to, you know, business analysis. But what I learned from working in that store was people skills, you know, being able to speak to customers, being able to support them in terms of they have a problem, they're looking for a particular item. I'm the point of contact. That's something, you know, I'm a problem solver. You know, I'm able to analyze a product and make recommendations. You know, it might be a piece of clothing and someone be like, you know, which one looks nice? That's me analyzing a problem and, you know, providing a solution or options analysis to the issue. So I always say there's in our day-to-day lives at home, in university, at work, there are all transferable skills. So you might have done something not related to international relations, but there's something like communication skills, active listening, you know, that you can attach to your CV and put out there that, you know, I haven't done this. I'm curious to learn more, but this is what I have done. So you're being honest in terms of, I have this. It would help in terms of moving into the direction I want to go into. I don't have the skills. I will provide you the skills I have, and in return, you would provide me, you know, more experience. So you're being upfront. And I do feel as though when you're in university, you know, the world's your oyster. There's a lot of experience you can gain. You even been here, and you know, Alexandra mentioned a summer camp or summer, you know, initiative. Seize the opportunity, even, you know, if you feel as though I don't have it now, create those opportunities for yourselves. You know, there's Google, you know, Google things and look for that opportunity. So don't restrict yourself as though I don't have it now. Start thinking, shift your mindset and I don't have it now. What can I do to gain those experiences as well? Does that help? Awesome.
I remember someone approached me on LinkedIn to ask how I had gotten into that position because they were looking to also apply to work at the Embassy of Brazil, and we were talking about my experience in the past. I worked at a college, I worked at a hairdresser, and they were like, "How did you like build up? Obviously, you went to uni and did your degree, but like, how did these other jobs help with getting that job?" And like you said, there's always something within the job that you've done in the past that is transferable. So for example, at the college I worked at, I used to handle a lot of confidential documents regarding finance, safeguarding, and that's something I applied and talked about in my interview, how I handled confidential documents, and that's something I do on a day-to-day. So there's always something, even if it's a small thing. You work at a server, you've got people skills, you're talking to people all the time, and that's something that you can add to like a public speaking job or something along those lines.
So I think international relations and politics is about helping people fundamentally, right? So whether it's experience you've done in hospitality or other services, it's essentially about helping people. So all of those skills are transferable. So I believe like kind of coming from a background where it wasn't quite in global mobility, but was kind of on the edge of global mobility, I was able to kind of take those experiences I've had and then take it on to the next job. But I would say most of it literally just came from learning on the job. You learn so much just from, you know, speaking to people or looking at what they're doing and being a little bit nosy just so that you can learn a little bit more, as well as, you know, certificates and training and anything. So I would say you don't really know what you want to kind of do until you're in it. And even then, you still don't know if that's sort of like the end goal.
And can I also add a point maybe here? Yeah. So just from my experience, I think at least 50% of people working for the UN, at least in my organization, they have a completely different degree rather than anything connected to IR and politics. So it just proves the point that everyone have different path, and it does not necessarily has to be something that is like stereotypically or like, you know, there is no right way to start a career in this sector, for example. You can go from any other paths, any other ways, but like reach the same point going through a completely different direction. So just do whatever is better for you. Don't think that you're missing out on opportunities, because if you're missed out on one, maybe there'll be another one that will be actually better off in the long term for you. So yeah, that's just the advice for me. And I think a few years ago as well, those IUM internships in University of Westminster were open for, I think the first year, it was open for only like students from politics and international relations. And further on, I think, I'm not sure how it was requested, but I think it was a request maybe from IOM to broaden up the spectrum of students, because it's very common here that we have interns from very different academic background. So, yeah.
Thank you, Alexandra. Since she's mentioned it, and this is not kind of pitching the program, but what she was part of was an internship program that you may not have heard about because you were first-year students last year. You can only start applying for it from this year. And you'll hear from myself about it. It's a paid internship program with various UN offices around the world for 6 to 9 months. And at the moment, we have 10 office students who were, again, you guys who are sitting there. And Alexandra was part of the 2022 cohort, I think. So what she's referring to, you'll hear about this soon. Any final thoughts or questions? So I think sort of one thing, and I'm going to maybe ask all of our panelists to just, you know, if you wanted to just say, what's the most important advice? One piece of advice. So let's just focus on one, make it more difficult. But one piece of advice you're going to give to our students today about how to go about thinking about jobs, applying for them, what would that be?
I would say be very intentional in what you're doing. So it could be, you know, looking into what you want to become, or the field you want to go into, or the company you want to work for. Like, be intentional, but also be patient. Because it won't just come with a click of a finger. It will take a while. And even then, it's, like I said, not the end goal.
So my piece of advice, and I think this is the most important thing, is just have some fire in the sense, like, just get out there, do stuff. If you have an idea, just don't wait until you feel ready. Just be ready now, and you'll find out how you get the job done later. It's very important to just, as everyone mentioned, to just get out there, be visible. You know, show the world who you really, really are, and don't be passive to your life. You know, like if you see an opportunity, take it. If you're in class, sit in the front, for goodness sake. Sit in the front and make people notice you, because that's the way you're gonna just have more opportunities. And you'll see, like, for example, in this panel, you see Julia talks a lot, and we like that because she's so open, right? And you see, after you go home, you're gonna remember her the most because she spoke the most and the most genuine. And I think that's what's important. Just be Julia, like we're all Julia at some point. Yeah, channel your Julia, inner Julia, and just put yourself out there and try to do the best that you can and make people remember you. And I think that's the most important thing. And I'm sorry I gave you as an example.
I wasn't expecting the compliments. Thank you so much. I wasn't always like this, by the way. I'm not like outspoken. I force myself to come up and speak. I force myself to be the person who is remembered. I force myself to stay back and speak to the teachers so they remember me, who I am. And every time I come into Westminster, I see these faces and they remember me. And I'm like, wow, yeah, they remember me. That's so cool. That's my advice to you guys. Make yourselves be remembered wherever you go. Find something about you that's interesting and make people remember you for that. Again, find something that makes you angry and you're passionate about, and make that like your whole fire, your whole identity. So when people speak to you and they see you again, they'll know exactly who you are and what you're about. Yeah.
For me, it's two things. Like I said, I'm someone of faith. So I put God first. You know, even in the littlest thing, I said, God, you know, what direction should I sort of go into? And, you know, it just magically, I'm not using the word magically happens, but, you know, it aligns. And the other thing as well that I do is just do it. You know, I'm not stealing Nike's brand, but just do it. You know, I always say to myself, what's the worst that can happen? I don't get the job. Is that the end of the world? No. More opportunities will come. You know, if this doesn't happen, you know, maybe it wasn't for me, it wasn't right for me. What's yours will not pass you by. So just like, you know, the ladies have said, be intentional. Be intentional in everything you do. For me, I'm intentional about my faith. And I just try it. Try new food. You know, try a lip gloss. Just try it and you never know. Yeah, that's it for me.
Thanks. Alexandra?
So sometimes what stops you from opportunities is that you think that if you do something, it's going to be the biggest mistake of your life. The advice here will be that you're in the age that allows you to make mistakes. So just make it and try it, and don't be scared to make one. So yeah, that's one advice from my end.
Really good pieces of advice. Thank you so much. And I think, you know, hopefully we have learned quite a bit from listening to our panel. And I think a few common threads which keep coming out. From now on, try and be visible. You're level 5, which is actually a very good time to do that. You've got the rest of this year and next year. This is the time to be visible, to do stuff that then you can put on your CV. You need to be smart about how to, as I said, sort of turn things around. Say yes to things. When you get opportunities, you'll be like, okay, you know, I can't be bothered. No, do go to events, you know, turn up for initiatives, etc. Because these are some of the most important things which are going to help you get that job at the end. And be confident that, yes, of course, I'm going to get rejections, but, you know, I've built a good CV. I've been active. I've tried to network with my lecturers, with the graduates, with whoever I meet. So it's just going to happen. It's just a matter of time. And as long as, you know, you've been engaged and you've been visible, it will happen as we've seen. Thank you so much to all of our panelists. Should we give them a round of applause?